Welcome to EWTN's live and complete coverage of the 10th National Eucharistic Congress. I'm your host, Catherine Hadro, coming to you from the Indianapolis Convention Center, and delighted to be joined once again by my two co-hosts. Father Aquinas Gilbo is a Dominican priest and the university chaplain and vice president of ministry and mission at the Catholic University of America. And Pete Burak is vice president of Renewal Ministries, which seeks to foster renewal in the Catholic Church through the power of the Holy Spirit for the salvation of souls. Here we are in the convention center. We've all walked over from Lucas Oil Stadium, and this is the time people are grabbing lunch, socializing with each other in the hallways, and preparing for the breakout sessions. And like we were saying earlier, it's a kind of choose your own adventure. There's lots of different options. And Father, you led a breakout session yesterday.
That's right. I like the change of venue, actually. It's a little more energetic. At least the people are closer. So in the mornings, we have common impact sessions. In the evenings, common revival sessions. But in the afternoon, as you say, it's a bit of choose your own adventure. There's so many options for people to choose and participate in breakout sessions. We're about to cover one this afternoon. Yesterday, yes, I did have the opportunity to lead one. It was called Is Orthodoxy Enough? Talking about the role of the family in Catholic education. What is Catholic education? And is it enough to define a program as Catholic, an educational program as Catholic, if it simply teaches just good doctrine? That's important, that's crucial, it's essential, but is it sufficient to form the next generation in the faith? So we had professors and officials from the Bishops' Conference just talking about the human formation in terms of what needs to take place in the family and what should the school be doing in terms of forming hearts and minds to receive truth, to engage truth, to participate in truth.
Can you give us a sense of, what kind of space that provided? I imagine it was more intimate. Did it allow for, just kind of common conversation? You probably got a good sense of what people here are saying and thinking. Yes,
I think it offers an opportunity for those, unlike at the impact sessions in the morning or the revival in the evening, to listen intently, closely, intimately to experts in a variety of areas, and then to engage them in questions. So we had about 200 people in the room. We had 4 people on our panel. They each gave a short presentation, had some conversations between them, but then we had about 20 or 30 minutes of questions. People, and they were excellent. I mean, just really engaging our speakers.
And Pete, we're preparing to pitch in a little bit, so stay tuned, viewers, to a breakout session called This Is My Body, A Catholic Approach to Gender Dysphoria with Jason Everett. Yeah. And he's such a dynamic Catholic speaker.
Yeah, he's been a great gift to the American church for a long time now. The Lord clearly called him and anointed him to lean into human sexuality and the theology of the body and understand and help a whole generation of people understand the way the Lord has made us and what he's made us for. I remember when I was in high school, Jason came to our high school.
Same.
I was a sophomore, and the talk was funny, it was dynamic, it captivated my heart, and it inspired me. I was already motivated to try to live a chaste life, but it certainly convicted me, and he had these little purity cards that we signed and all these things. I still remember the feeling walking out of there going like, okay, this is what the Lord wants from me, and this is what it means to kind of live my sexuality well, and I want to follow that. And there's just, again, there's just this atmosphere around here of joy. Everybody's smiling. There's lines and there's crowds and there's hard to find food at different points and there's a lot that could be derailing people, and they're not seemingly at all derailed. There's a joy and a unity. There's a confession line that people are now filling up. There's little bells ringing at different points, and the Blessed Sacrament comes by. So much is happening. It's kind of like a Catholic Disneyland or something. There's just so much going on, but it's all directed towards the King, and that's a beautiful thing.
I think you ran into someone from high school a few minutes ago. I ran into someone from college. Again, there is this joy that you get at events like World Youth Day. For example, when the church is coming together, and we just heard bells again. Which means that Jesus is being transferred from chapel to chapel. Well, we're going to continue our coverage before that breakout session that we're going to bring you here on EWTN. But before that, we're going to take a short break. Stay right with us. Welcome back to our ongoing coverage of the National Eucharistic Congress. There are expected to be about 50,000 people here, and I know we've been highlighting these keynote speakers, but what really makes this Congress special are all the families who are traveling here together, and we're here to introduce you to one of those very families, Justin Alvarez, Kelly Alvarez. Thank you for being here with 8 out of your 10 children. And Justin, you and I happen to know you. We have the privilege of getting to work with each other within the pro-life movement, serve on the board of the Obria group, which is based in California, and you traveled from California?
Yes, yes.
Via van.
We've traveled with the RV. We put most of them in the RV and brought them out here, and it's been a challenging but joy-filled journey, a pilgrimage, and even the kids were helpful in choosing the prayers they would have throughout the pilgrimage of the journey to get here, along which we also got to see family and friends along the way, so it's been a great blessing to journey here and to be here.
I love that aspect of you guys built in a pilgrimage before coming here for this event, which it's more than a conference, right? This is centered around Jesus. Kelly and Justin, when did you kind of have the idea of, yeah, this is going to be a sacrifice. You know, we're going to take some time. We're going to make this drive. But what prompted you to say, we're going to do this? We're going to travel to Indianapolis?
It was a year ago.
Really?
And we were very excited about the Eucharistic revival and the 3 years that it took to get here. And so last year we decided that this is what we're going to do. So we bought the tickets right away, and we were ready to plan it into our summer.
That's incredible. I'd love to hear even just what it's been like to be together as a family. I mean, here's one of your sons here, and you're a graduate of college, and you don't live in California anymore.
No, I live in Nashville, Tennessee right now.
So when's the last time you saw your family?
Well, I've been able to see them every couple of months. Went out for a wedding of one of our cousins, and then I was also here, home for Christmas break and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's really nice to be able to get back with my family, really live this revival with them and for them and all of that stuff.
I think that's been what's so special. You know, there's World Youth Day, there's like youth conferences, marriage conferences, but to have a family, to bring the family together. I'd love to hear if any of you would be willing to share, you know, what the Eucharist means to you. Therese, do you have any thoughts with that? And feel free to come a little bit here.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed just seeing what the Eucharist can do for plain ordinary people. I remember listening to Mother Olga last night, and she had stories about everyday people like Mighty Quinn and baby Emma, who they're just ordinary people, but she brought the Eucharist, she brought Christ to them, and they were healed. And it's seeing these things that happen in our everyday life, but Christ comes to us through the Eucharist, and he makes it so present to us and so easily accessible that it just leaves you back wow and awe and everything. So
that's so eloquently said. I mean, I think that's been so evident that Jesus is coming to his people, right? What has stood out to you? Has there been a favorite moment? I know those revival sessions in the evenings have been so powerful. Any kind of highlight that you all have just really loved?
I really, really loved having, I think, with every revival at night, what we either start with or end with is adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. And just looking around, seeing the whole stadium filled with 50,000 Catholics adoring and praising the Eucharist, Jesus who's truly present there. It really is just so moving, and so I just am bursting with love and joy, and so it's really amazing.
Our hearts are on fire. Justin, were you going to say something?
I think one of the things that most compelled me was the opening evening session where we had the pilgrims who've been traveling across the United States from every direction, forming a cross across the United States, ending here in Indianapolis. And as they all processed in, and then they were followed by Bishop Cozzens with Our Lord and the Monstrance, and just the silence that fell over a stadium of 50,000 people that had just moments before been very vocally welcoming all the pilgrims. I think that unity from across the nation is amazing. And I think after this conference, you're going to see the grace just blow up and spread across the nation like a big cloud across the country as the grace of people returning to their places in the United States, it takes place.
That's the goal, right? To see it doesn't end here. It has to continue in the home and in the local parish and to each and every single individual. Kelly and Justin, I'd love to hear, I mean, your children are so eloquent and thoughtful. To hear them reflecting on the Eucharist, how is that to hear them?
Absolutely beautiful. It warms my heart and reminds me that Jesus has been with me, has been with us as a family as we have gone through the years, and that he's taken root in our hearts.
No, it's so evident, just your love for the Lord, and I can't even imagine these memories that you all will have in the years to come as a family. I'd love to, ask you, has there been a special moment that has stood out to you, a favorite talk, a favorite speaker, or anything like that?
I like meeting Father Rocky, but my favorite talk so far, I think, has been Father Mike Smitch. I really like what he had to say, and he seemed like a very faithful person, and I love seeing those people are all around in one area. Coming to hear more about God and learning more about Jesus in the Eucharist. It's really cool to see like 50,000 people coming to one area and knowing that they're all Catholics, or a majority of them are all Catholics. And I thought that was really cool.
There is something so invigorating about it. I mean, there are these kind of events, like the March for Life, for example, where a big crowd comes together and it's like a battery charger, and it kind of feels like a spiritual high right now, right? But it does serve a purpose. In our just final minutes with you again, I think you such a beautiful family. You guys made these sacrifices to drive from California here to Indianapolis. How do you all cultivate a devotion and love for the Eucharist in your everyday life? Any special devotions or anything like that?
We have regular holy hours, and he does and I do, and then the kids often come with us for our different holy hours and times for that. And we've also done prayers in the evening, and I think that's and we just really brought it to life. Oh, and our last two received their first Holy Communion.
Recently?
Year,
Oh,
this last April.
Congratulations.
So we are now all communicating, so that's wonderful.
Just in time.
Kelly has been teaching them at home up until high school age, and
Right.
her ability to teach them personally on their theology, and especially on the Eucharist and the role Christ can play in their life, is, I think, how they've gotten to the formation they have. And so that personal commitment she's made has been a great blessing to the family. And I think then just us going to Mass as a family every Sunday as much as possible. Sometimes you can't, but most of the time, if you make that a priority, and even during the pandemic, when we couldn't go in, we prayed at home, but then we go to the chapel and say, this is where Jesus is, so we're going to sit outside and pray here to him because he's in there. Those little things, I think, emphasize to them the real presence and why we do this.
And it seems, we've had a few conversations. This whole national Eucharistic revival started because there's so many Catholics who do not believe in the real presence. You can only say and teach so much. Part of it, you have to experience it. You have to encounter the Lord in the Eucharist, right? And spend that time in adoration one-on-one to have that type of love. I mean, how do you think, again, we've been talking about there's this kind of spiritual high here. There's this excitement buzzing around here in the hallways. How do you hope to continue? Do you have any ideas? Has this sparked any ideas of what do you want to do next after this when it comes to being focused on our Lord?
I mean, I definitely think making a better statement of getting to adoration or holy hour every single week. Fortunately, I'm at a school, Thomas Aquinas College, that gives us adoration at least during the summer once a week. And so really taking that ability to sign up and take the time to make a holy hour and to pray to her. I think another big thing I want to put into practice is making sure that I also give time to pray to Mary, because Mary is our way to Christ. And so I think incorporating during my holy hour some devotions to Mary will also really help solidify that a lot.
Mary will always bring you closer to Jesus, won't she? And remind me the age range that we have here.
So Joe is 23, and then we go all the way down to the twins. They're 8.
8 to 23 here, but then you have 2 other kids here. That's incredible. Today the theme of today is into Gethsemane, And it seems like we're really focusing on repentance. And you mentioned Father Mike Schmitz. Yesterday he talked about you can't have a revival without repentance. That oftentimes our love for the Eucharist has to go along with the sacrament of reconciliation and confession. I thought that was so powerful as well. Were you all in Lucas Oil Stadium earlier today for the talk with Dr. Mary Healy?
Yes. It's powerful.
Anything that stood out to you there? I mean, again, Jesus as healer, right?
Jesus was there. It was very beautiful, and just the amount of people who were touched by that, and you could tell. Yes, it was a very prayerful time.
It really was.
It was a sort of a manifestation. In the personal healings, the physical healings. It was a manifestation of the interior healing that I think is what they were also reminding us to focus on. So not just about the physical healings, but the spiritual healing of confession. They invited everybody to confession afterwards, and the sisters have been. There was one lovely sister the other day when the confession lines were down. She was out in the halls saying, "Jesus is calling you to confession." She was calling everybody in because the lines were down. There's no lines. Jesus is calling you now.
I heard about that, and I think, because everyone's at the concessions, she's like, okay, come to confession because the line is open. And they're keeping confession open, I think, until 11 p.m. last night.
Yeah.
They want to make the sacraments as readily available. And again, that kind of sticks out to me as Jesus is at the center here. It began, as you mentioned, Justin, with that Eucharistic procession with Bishop Cozzens, who said, we're going to give Jesus the first word, and he's getting the last word here as well. We are so grateful for you. God bless you for sharing your experience, and God bless you for your beautiful family.
Thank you for having us, Catherine.
Absolutely. We take you now to a breakout session called This Is My Body, a Catholic Approach to Gender Dysphoria with Jason Everett.
6 continents and bring the message of purity to millions of people for over 20 years. He is a best-selling author of more than 15 books, including St. John Paul the Great, How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, and the curriculum You, Life, Love, and the Theology of the Body. He is a frequent guest on podcasts and radio programs throughout the country, and his television appearances include MSNBC, Fox News, the BBC, and EWTN. He runs Chastity Project, hosts a podcast, Lust is Boring, and leads an international alliance of young people who promote purity in over 40 countries. Please welcome to the stage, Jason Everett.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Let's start our time together in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. St. John Paul II, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. A couple years back, I was speaking at a Catholic high school in the Midwest on chastity. Before my talk, one of the teachers got up in front of the students, and he said, I want to give you a little quiz. I want to give you a quote, and I want to see if you know who said the quote. Now, he starts off with some really inappropriate lyrics from a popular song at the time, and all the students knew the singer. Oh, that's Cardi B, or that's Lil Wayne, and they all started singing the song. He said, okay, got that one. And again, he starts off with some really more inappropriate lyrics, and the entire student body starts singing the song. He said, okay, I got one more quote for you. Tell me who said it. A man shall leave his father and his mother, cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Who said it? A hushed silence fell over the crowd of 800 Catholic high school students. One of the kids raised his hand and said, Buddha. Another kid raised his hand. He said, no, I know, Muhammad Ali, who he thought was the founder of Islam, not the boxer from the 1970s. And finally, a kid raised his hand and said, God, apparently one of their honors students. But what the teacher said, he said, you just demonstrated to me that you know exactly what the world has to say about your sexuality, but you might have overestimated your understanding of what the church teaches on sexuality. And today we're going to pivot a bit from sexuality as something you do to sexuality as something we are. And the song being sung by our culture on this topic has gotten more confusing lyrics than ever before. I was at World Youth Day, and one of the girls on our group pulls out her cell phone. And she said, look, Jason, I'm going to Stanford University in the fall, and I got to fill out my college application here on the phone. She said, look right here. I have to pick my gender to get into Stanford. Watch this. And she just starts scrolling through the list of genders, and there were 18 to pick from, but male and female were not options on the list to get into Stanford University. That was more than a decade ago. Things have accelerated. Facebook offers its users 58 genders. Facebook in the UK has a list of 71. Tumblr, popular website for the teens, actually has a list of 500 genders. Now, when most Catholics hear this, we have one of two responses, typically. One is just to debate it, and the other is just to dismiss it. Oh, this gender fluid, non-binary, trans woman nonsense. You're either XX or XY. That's all there is to it. But imagine if you were on the receiving end of that, and you experience gender dysphoria. You'd probably feel kind of erased or attacked. And if you're like me, this is something you wrestle with in terms of the fact you, like me, maybe have friends who identify as trans. If you're like me, you actually have family members in the trans community, and you wrestle with this. Like, okay, am I supposed to use their pronoun, or do we not use the pronoun? Am I supposed to say the name? Because, like, I heard if we don't, that they're more likely to commit suicide, and I would not want to contribute to that. What are we supposed to do? Or what if I experience gender dysphoria? Like, what does God think about me? Well, that answer is clear as day. In the Old Testament, it says it right here in the Book of Wisdom. God, for you love all things that exist, and you loathe none of the things that you've made, because you would not have made anything if you had hated it. And so these individuals deserve truth, but also the love, because if you know what they've been through, I mean, one of them emailed me recently, and this is a middle-aged Catholic man who has struggled with gender dysphoria his whole life. And he told me what it was like growing up with that. He said, school dances were hell. Holidays were awful. Swimming was a weird dysphoric torture. But I learned to cope, to be strong, to be normal. Coupling all of this with being autistic and not knowing that until I was 31, you can imagine how much of a freak I felt like growing up. I never felt like I belonged anywhere, ever. I don't want to have surgery. I don't want to take hormones. I know that both of those will just present new problems, but being a man is just not fulfilling or authentic to me. I don't feel like I'm truly one of the guys. It feels like I'm mimicking the gorillas, so they don't realize I'm not part of their group. But being a woman doesn't always work, because no matter what I do, I'm not truly one of them either. I try, but I'll never share their struggles and experience. I still feel like performing in girl mode, but it's closer to me. Do you know what it's like feeling like you're wearing a costume constantly in a play that you did not sign up for? Honestly, my answer is no. I don't know what that feels like. I mean, the closest it came in my life is when I was a kid. My parents took me to like a Star Wars movie, and Princess Leia, I got a crush on Princess Leia, okay? There, I said it. And I didn't know how to kind of express that. So Halloween rolls around, and my dad's like, what do you want to be for Halloween? I'm like, I want to be Princess Leia. And he's like, how about you be a robot like your brother? I'm like, all right, robots are cool, we'll do that. And that was kind of the end of it. But for other people, it doesn't quite end there. It goes much deeper. And as I said, these individuals deserve love, but then they also deserve the truth. But how do we blend that without compromising either? How do we provide charity at the same time as clarity? The first thing I'd propose is this. Let's distinguish gender theory, which is a set of ideologies, from gender dysphoria, which is something individuals experience. So gender theory, this was an idea popularized in the 1950s with this idea that gender is just a social construct. And it began in terms of gender roles, but it bled beyond that. Masculinity, femininity, those aren't real things. Male, woman, it's not so much nature, it's nurture that makes us that way. There's no real difference between us otherwise. One sociologist tried to prove this with her own kid. She said, you'll see, I will raise my daughter gender neutral. I'm not just going to give her dolls and pink little blankets. I'll give her the color blue and trucks, and you'll see. She'll be gender neutral. She gave up. She said it became so frustrating. She said every single night, my daughter insisted on tucking each of her trucks into bed one at a time. Good night, little trucky. Good night, little trucky. Up to the headlights for you. Like, she couldn't scrub the maternal out of this girl. Better example, Hasbro, the toy company, wanted to create a gender-neutral playhouse. This was supposed to be a dollhouse that boys and girls would play with in the same way. Well, here's what happened. They said it soon emerged that girls and boys did not interact with the structure in the same way. The girls dressed the dolls, kissed them, and played house. The boys catapulted the toy baby carriage from the roof. Yeah. A Hasbro manager came up with a novel explanation. Boys and girls are different. Well, you think so. But here's the question. But what about the boy who does want to play with the dolls? What about the girl who prefers rough and tumble play? Do their preferences perhaps indicate they were born into the wrong body? Well, that's perhaps giving stereotypes way too much power. Listen to what Pope Francis said. He said, I ask myself if the so-called gender theory is not at the same time an expression of frustration and resignation that seeks to cancel out sexual difference because we no longer know how to deal with it. Yes, we risk taking a step backwards. The removal of sexual difference, in fact, creates a problem, not a solution. And I think the rejection of these rigid gender norms was an understandable reaction to how rigid they had become, especially in American culture. That if you're a woman, you gotta just fit into that Instagram mold. And if you're a real man, you better be into drinking beer and shooting deer and watching NASCAR. But what if you're like me and you're not into that stuff? NASCAR? I mean, I know it's Indianapolis, but really, driving a car for 500 miles in a circle, it does nothing for me, okay? I'm not a car guy. I can't even change the oil in my own pickup truck. It's not my thing. Well, are you into drinking beer? To be honest, I don't even like the taste of beer. I'd rather have a glass of red wine, maybe a Merlot or a nice red blend, not into the beer. Well, you at least into hunting? Not really. I mean, I threw a rock at a bird when I was a kid, and I hit it, and I still feel bad about that. Look, I'm not this stereotypical American macho man. I'm not like some 6'5" football player. I'm a 5'6" chastity speaker. Okay, look, I don't fit the mold, and it's okay, because I don't fit the mold, but who cares? Because I don't have to fit the mold. Because I know I'm a man, not because I feel so manly. I know I'm a man because I have the body of a man. And our bodies are not meaningless, they're meaningful. Again, listen to Pope Francis. He said these rigid gender stereotypes can hinder the development of an individual's abilities to the point of leading him or her to think that it's not really masculine to cultivate art or dance. It's not very feminine to exercise leadership. These are bogus gender stereotypes. The most masculine man I've ever met in my life was deeply passionate about theater, poetry, and the arts. And I got to meet him in person 24 times, and I've never met a more masculine man, and his name was St. John Paul II. And I've never been in the presence of such masculinity. And he was an athlete, he was an outdoorsman, but he also loved poetry and theater. And dude, thank God he didn't grow up in a culture that told him that if he likes theater and poetry, he's not that much of a man. He wasn't burdened by these rigid gender stereotypes. Because when especially young people are, it causes unnecessary questioning. And if you think about it, gender stereotypes exaggerate sexual difference. Gender theory tries to eliminate sexual differences. Gender stereotypes try to get a person to conform their personality to match their body. Gender theory tries to get people to conform their body to match their personality. Neither of these is the right approach. I read one feminist author, not Christian, but she nailed it. She said, a woman is someone with a female body and any personality, not a female personality and any body. But here's the question. What about when they don't line up? What about when you got a person who's very clearly biologically male, but his internal sense of identity is female? This can create considerable distress known as gender dysphoria. To help you to understand that term, think of the word euphoria, which is an intense happiness. Dysphoria is the opposite of that, a deeply felt distress about this disconnect between my body and my sense of self. To give you an idea of what that would feel like, I could ask the guys in here, how much is it that I'd have to pay you to dress as a woman for the rest of your life? Would you do it for $100? Nope. Would you do it for $1,000? Nope. Okay, $100,000? No. Okay, $1 million. And if you want the money, you got to go full send. You'd be better wearing a dress to mass tomorrow. If you go to the hotel gym, you better be wearing like Lululemon pants and a crop top. Like, you got to go full send on that one. Most guys be like, not for $1 million. Why not? For that much money? I don't know, I just feel awkward, embarrassed, inauthentic, not myself. But what if that feeling of disconnect wasn't just an outfit? What if it was your body itself? This is gender dysphoria. Now, when a child experiences gender dysphoria, the studies are clear. 80 to 95% of the time, as they go through puberty, they will naturally come to identify with their biological sex. So about 90% of the time, it resolves on its own unless gender affirmative care does not intervene. What does that mean? Gender affirmative care, I mean, shouldn't we affirm people? We should affirm people, but we shouldn't affirm dysphoria. Well, what's the distinction? What does it mean to offer affirmative care to kids? Well, what that looks like is this. I was speaking up in Massachusetts, and a parent in Boston gave me a letter. And they said, look what I just got from the Department of Education for the state of Massachusetts. They will be doing mandatory read alouds in classrooms for children to avoid bullying. And I said, okay, well, that's good. We don't want bullying going on. And we want to promote tolerance and inclusion. I said, okay, I see where this is going. Let me see the list of the books. And I read them, and I'm like, okay. And I bought them all, ordered them all, shipped to my house, and I read each book. And they were books like this, Call Me Max. And it's a cute little story cartoon book about this child. And they've got pictures like this with a mom and a dad sitting on a couch holding their newborn baby. And it says when a baby is born, a grown-up says it's a boy or it's a girl. But if a brand new baby could talk, sometimes that baby might say, no, I am not. When a baby grows up to be transgender, it means that the grown-up who said they were a boy or a girl made a mistake. This was read to 450,000 kids starting in grade pre-K. 4 years old and up, they were read books like this. This is not promoting tolerance. This is promoting transgenderism, which is the idea that if you don't feel at home in your body, your feelings are not the problem. Your body is the problem. Because your body does not reveal reality. Feelings reveal reality. And so if you want to live an authentic life, you have to admit you are trans. Therefore, there's only one solution, which is to transition, which has 4 stages. The first would be social transitioning. You could change your name, restrooms, pronoun, clothing, sports teams, and it's an external transition. The second stage would be puberty blockers. These are drugs being administered to children as young as 8 years old to block puberty. Now, how do you block puberty? They give kids a drug called Lupron. This is the same drug given to chemically castrate male sex offenders, and they're giving it to kids as young as 8 years old. But look, if you don't have puberty when you should have puberty, that's a disease. It's called Kallmann syndrome. So they're inducing a disease state in otherwise physically healthy kids. Saying, well, we're just putting a pause button on puberty. So they've got more time to discover their gender journey and not go through the wrong puberty. It's like, well, wait a minute. Pause puberty? You're not just pausing puberty, they're pausing bone development. These kids are getting spinal cord compression, osteoporosis before they even have a driver's license. It's pausing neurological development. And I'll say, well, it'll help their mental health. Read the side effects of the drug that come in the packet. It says these drugs can cause crying, irritability, impatience, anger, aggression, and suicidal ideation and attempt. These are the side effects of the drug they're giving to the kids to stop those things. No wonder the United Kingdom just banned these drugs for minors. They looked at the quality of the research behind it and said it's very poor quality evidence behind this. And so they're shifting. And the advocates of this treatment will say, no, we're just putting a pause button on puberty. This is not a pause button. It's a fast forward button to cross-sex hormones. Because 95% of the time, if a child goes on puberty blockers, they go right on to cross-sex hormones. Because think about it. If I'm an 11-year-old boy and I go on puberty blockers for 4 years, and now I'm 15, and all my buddies have broader shoulders, deeper voices, and a little 5 o'clock shadow, and I still look like a prepubescent 11-year-old boy, you think I'm gonna feel more aligned to my masculine identity? No, I'll feel more detached from it. So more than 95% of the time, they go on to get cross-sex hormones. But if you go from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones, it sterilizes you. You'll never be able to have children. And so the next step is this cross-sex hormones, where they give the girls T or testosterone, and guys similar drugs that work in an opposite fashion. And to be clear, these drugs do not give you the primary sex characteristics of the other sex. You don't develop the gonads, the gametes, the reproductive organs. You get these secondary sex characteristics. So if a girl goes on T, she'll get broader shoulders, a deeper voice, a bit of facial hair, a redistribution of fat in her body. But this is not all that will change. Her risk of heart disease is quadrupled, because the amount of red blood cells changes in her body. The amount of testosterone in her body becomes the same level as if she had had an androgen-secreting tumor in her body. Her uterus will need to be removed within about 5 years because the increased risk of endometrial cancer. And if she wants to keep up the masculinized look, she has to stay on the drug. Because if you go off, within 3 weeks, your body wants to go back to normal. Some things could last. The voice pitch might never change. Some things will go back. So if you want to keep up the look, you become a pharmaceutical patient for the rest of your life. And if these changes don't suffice, the next step would be surgery. It used to be called like sex change operation. The term is not used anymore. They call it like a gender affirmative procedure. Anything from recontouring the forehead, shaving off the Adam's apple, top surgery, bottom surgery. One of the most common is called top surgery. This is a bilateral mastectomy for girls. Oakland, California Children's Hospital is now doing double mastectomies for 12-year-old girls. Los Angeles Children's Hospital is giving these procedures to 13-year-old girls. Up the coast in Oregon, they changed the age of medical consent to 15. Do you know what this means in Oregon? If I'm a 17-year-old girl and I want to use a tanning bed, because prom is coming up in a couple weeks, I'll go to the tanning salon, they'll look at my ID. Sorry, can't tan. You need to be 18. 17 is not old enough to make such a big decision as getting a fake tan. Let's say you're a college student. University of Portland, hanging out with your girlfriends on a Saturday night. You go to a tattoo parlor. I want to get that tattoo, a little flower on my ankle here. Can I see your ID? Ma'am, I'm sorry, you're 20 years old. That's not old enough to get a tattoo. That's a major decision. But you got to be 21. But throughout the state of Oregon now, a girl can now, at the age of 15, get a double mastectomy without her parents' permission. But here's the question. Where's she going to get the money? That's a $10,000 procedure. Well, GoFundMe.com is a popular crowdfunding website. You can raise money for service projects and medical bills. Last time I checked on GoFundMe, how many girls are raising money to get a double mastectomy? Last time I checked, it was 41,000 girls. And people aren't saying, here's $5, here's $20. No, they're dropping $5,000. Here, go be your authentic self. And many of these girls are not getting bottom surgeries. They're stopping at the top. Many of them are just wanting to identify as non-binary, which means in between male and female or outside of these gender categories. They don't want to be male. What they do know is they don't want to be female anymore. Because think of the pressure, because you got to be skinny, but you got to be healthy, and you got to be sexy, but you got to be modest, and you got to be assertive, but submissive, and successful, but domestic. All of these pressures on adolescent females are enough to make them say, I'm out. I'm done, I don't want this anymore. And so for many, it's an escape, and they live this nomadic sense of sexual identity. The cumulative weight of societal pressure is just too much. And so these procedures promise, well, if you just get these things, you'll feel relief. You'll finally feel at home in your own body, and the suffering can end. And granted, some people get the procedures, and afterwards are elated. They look at their body in the mirror and they say, finally, my chest looks the way I want it to. I always hated my breasts to begin with. Other times they look in the mirror and it spawns a new dysphoria. Well, wait a minute, now that my breasts are gone, my hips look too big. Maybe I need surgery on that. Other people look at the mirror in absolute horror, calling the doctors back 2 weeks later, can you put the body parts back on, which obviously they can't. But if you follow all these individuals, about 10 years after the procedure, the suicide rate climbs to 19 times higher than the general population. Isolate out the female to male transitioners, you're looking at a suicide rate 40 times more than the general population. And the world will say, well, that's because of you transphobic religious bigots. If you were more accepting to them, they wouldn't take their lives. And there's merit to this social stress model, this idea that if we aren't loving, people are more likely to get depressed. There's merit to that, but it doesn't tell the full story. The full story is this: 90% of people who commit suicide have a diagnosable mental health condition. And suicide and surgery and hormones are not the way to treat that. I know an anesthesiologist, he told me, he said, look, I told the doctors in my hospital, don't come to me if you want me to give anesthesia to one of your patients getting these procedures. Because he said, I won't. Not because I'm a transphobe. He says, because I've seen their medical charts, the comorbidities of autism, OCD, depression, anxiety, trauma. Many of them are living out of these wounds, some of them dissociating from their own bodies as a trauma response. And what we're doing is depriving them of the opportunity to develop strategies to address these real life issues, because we're making their body a false target of intervention. And the doctor said, I won't have any part of this. He said, it's malpractice. You're contributing to mental illness instead of actually treating it. And so if this is not the answer, surgeries and drugs, well, what is the answer then? Well, the world says, look, if you don't accept these individuals, you are abandoning them. And if you don't affirm them, you're rejecting them. So who are you going to be? The transphobe or the reasonable, compassionate human being? If those are our only two menu options, most people say, well, I don't want to be a jerk, so yeah, you do you and I won't judge you. These aren't the only two options. It's a false binary. Pope Francis gives us the option of accompaniment, where we walk with these individuals in truth and in love. Because yes, they deserve love, but they also deserve the truth. Because to give someone love without giving them the truth is false compassion. It's misguided mercy. Because if you love somebody, you can't lie to them. And the truth is, we can't add the word trans to another word and create a new reality. Because when God speaks, things come into existence. When human beings speak, we make noise. This is a substantial ontological difference, but people are riding the coattails of this transgender moment, identifying now as transracial, even having racial reassignment surgeries. I don't know if you remember Rachel Dolezal. This is a Caucasian woman who tried to pass as an African American working for the NAACP. She changed her hair color, dyed her skin color, and then someone figured it out. Wait a minute, you're white. And she said, oh look, I know I was born white, but I identify as black. Since the time I was a little girl, I would draw pictures of myself with the brown crayon instead of the peach crayon. I identify as black. They're like, you're a white girl, that's not gonna work. Can't do that. Some people are even now identifying as trans age. Now, wouldn't that be nice? But there was so one of these guys, this guy's 52-year-old husband and father of 7 kids, left his wife and kids to identify as a 6-year-old girl and was adopted by a set of elderly grandparents who are letting live this whole thing out in the day-to-day life. Now, this isn't just on the fringes of the internet, no. This is on the covers of Bud Light cans. Dylan Mulvaney, that's not just transgender, That's trans age. It's a 27-year-old man celebrating 365 days of girlhood. Now, these individuals who may want to transition their race or their age, here's the question. Do you hate those people? You'd be like, no, I don't hate them. Well, then why won't you let them transition their age or their race? You'd be like, well, let them? This is not about like permission. This is about possibility. And as Ryan Anderson has said, who's written so well on this subject, biology is not bigotry. That's why medicine is so sex specific. Not just that women can get cervical cancer, guys can get prostate cancer. No, we're susceptible to different diseases differently. Women are more prone to autoimmune disease. Men are more prone to infectious disease. We exhibit symptoms of disease differently. If a man gets a heart attack, he'll experience pain in his chest, pain radiating down his arm. If a woman gets a heart attack, she experiences nausea, shortness of breath, and pain between her shoulder blades. If you suffer a stroke, the man will take longer to recover his speech after having suffered a stroke than the woman will, because the man only uses the left hemisphere of his brain to speak, whereas women use both hemispheres, which means if you actually hit a man hard enough on the left side of his head, he could go completely mute. If you hit a woman there, she'll just keep right on talking. And so but ladies don't get any ideas, wives. Even better example, I read of one doctor. He was treating a patient who had epileptic seizures, and he put her on an anti-epileptic medicine, and it worked well for a few weeks, and then she had a seizure. So he switched up the medicine, and she still had a seizure. Couldn't figure it out, and he consulted a colleague of his who's a specialist in gender medicine, not in transgender, but in male-female biological differences from a medical perspective. Doctor looked at the chart, and he said, oh, well, here's the problem. I go, what is it? And he said, look when she's having the seizure. She's always having the seizure during the second phase of her menstrual cycle. During that phase of a woman's cycle, her body will produce a surge of progesterone. Now, progesterone is a known inhibitor of anti-epileptic medicine. So when the progesterone goes up, the efficacy of the medicine goes down, and she's having the seizure. So he said, what you need to do is just increase the dosage only during the second phase of the menstrual cycle. It'll offset the progesterone, and the seizures should go away. He treated her accordingly, and she ended up being fine because the doctor was acknowledging her reality as a woman. And so our sex is not something like you're hearing today assigned at birth. No, in biology, sex is determined by how an organism is organized for reproduction. And there are only two options. For gametes, it's either the sperm or the egg as a mature reproductive cell. The gonads, it's either the testes or the ovaries. That's it. There's no third, there's no spectrum. There could be disorders of sexual development, but these don't constitute a third or fourth sex. But people will argue, well, yeah, but I heard that they're intersex people. It's like 1 out of every 50 people is intersex, neither male nor female. It's like, well, wait a minute, where'd you get that research? The number isn't 1 in 50, it's 1 in 5,000. And these 1 in 5,000 are still male or female. Because while it's true that there are only two sexes, it's not true that everybody's sex is unambiguous. Some people will say, well, look at people who have Klinefelter's or Turner syndrome. Well, let's look at these things. Klinefelter's. This is a syndrome that affects some men, and what happens is this guy will inherit from his parents an extra X or series of X chromosomes. So instead of being XY, it could be XXY or XXXY. As a result of this, he will have a larger development in his chest of breast tissue. He will also typically struggle with infertility. In fact, many men don't even know they have Klinefelter's until they seek infertility treatment and find that this is the cause of it. Men who have Klinefelter's but not infertility can live their entire life not even knowing that they have Klinefelter's, but they're still 100% male. Turner syndrome is something that affects women. This is a girl who will be born with a missing or partially deleted second X chromosome. And since 2 X chromosomes are needed to fully develop the ovaries, she also will experience infertility. And because she doesn't have enough hormones to induce typical pubertal development, she'll be shorter in stature, but she's still 100% woman. And so these conditions do not prove that there are more than two sexes. These are disorders of sexual development. And this idea that these individuals prove gender theory is a really weird objection, because it's saying that we should look to the body to reveal the truth of the person, which is the opposite of gender theory. Most people who experience gender dysphoria don't have any disorder of sexual development. In fact, the fact that their body is anything but ambiguous is triggering much of their dysphoria. And so it's not a very good argument. In fact, scientists have found more than 6,500 sex-specific genes, meaning your esophagus, they discovered, is male or female. Your spleen is male or female. Your arteries are male or female. In fact, every single cell of the human body that has a nucleus is sexed. That's why you could never change your sex. You'd have to swap out every cell of the human body, not even to mention the soul. Now, some animals can change their sex. Japanese goby fish, it's fascinating. It's a little habitat of female fish with one dominant alpha male. Reach into the habitat, pull out the dominant alpha male, and within 1 week, the largest remaining female will transform into a biological male fish, capable of now reproducing with the females. If you then reintroduce the alpha male back into the habitat, the largest female who had transitioned to male will detransition back to female and again be capable of gestating as a female. This is called sequential hermaphroditism. It's present in less than 1% of all of the animal kingdom, but it does exist. But it does not exist within humans, because our sex is fixed, not only in this life, but even in the life to come. Now, upon hearing this, a person who experiences gender dysphoria would probably say, look, I'm not arguing with any of your science. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm changing my chromosomes. What I'm trying to say is I just want to look how I feel. And why is that too much to ask for? I just want to embrace my gender identity. How do we reply to this? Like I mentioned, these individuals, they deserve to be listened. They deserve truth, but they also deserve to be listened to. My encouragement to you today, I want you to learn how to listen to gender dysphoria with reverent curiosity. And here's what I mean. I was speaking at a high school in Texas, and a boy came up afterwards and introduced himself as trans. And then we sat down, we had a wonderful conversation. I said, well, tell me about your life. And he said, well, I've got 2 older sisters and 2 younger sisters and live with mom and dad. And he said, you know my sisters? He's like, it's like they can do no wrong. My parents love them. They're affectionate to them. They fawn over them. They dote over them. But he said, me, I'm like the black sheep of the family. But I've got straight A's. I'm on the swim team. I do mixed martial arts, but nothing I do is ever good enough for my parents. I looked at him, I said, well, do you think if you were born a woman, you would have been loved the way your sisters are loved? And he looked at me and he said, I know that I would have been. And so to me, it's like, okay, here we are. Your ache is not to be female, your ache is to be loved, and you see that identity is the pathway to that love. From that school, we went to a junior high in Dallas. After the talk, 6 7th grade girls came up to me, all identifying as lesbian. And they're 12-year-old girls. And I started talking to the girls. And it turned out they were not erotically attracted to the 8th grade girls. They just thought the 8th grade boys were disgusting, which of course we know they are. And so instead of shaming these girls, I said to them, you know what? I am glad that you are not attracted to those kinds of boys. I said, I would be more concerned about you if you did find those boys attractive. But I said, let me just go out on a limb and guess that what you're really aching for is a relationship in which you are safe from objectification, where you can relate to someone on an emotionally profound level, and shocker, you're not finding that with the 12 to 13-year-old boys, okay? The problem isn't you, the problem is you're replacing this story with a label of lesbian. Let's listen to the story and drop the labels for a moment. So we've got to be the ears of Christ. A friend of mine does this so well. He told me once that he does evangelization in gay and lesbian bars in Chicago. And when he first told me that, I'm like, wow, you must be a real popular guy kind of bringing your catechism into a lesbian bar. He's like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, I know, but how do you evangelize? And he said, oh, well, we just talk about like the White Sox and the Bears and the Cubs and everything and the Bulls. I'm like, I know, but how do you talk to them about God? And he said, usually we don't. And I'm like, well, then how is that evangelization, not just a conversation? And he said, look, I've been doing this for 3 years now. And he said, I have male prostitutes calling my cell phone at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're thinking about committing suicide because they know I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm a really good listener. I'm going to be there for them. He said, you don't always have to be the mouth of Christ. Sometimes you're just supposed to be his ears. So not only the ears of Christ, but even his eyes. I met a mom recently in California whose son is transitioning as an adult male to this female identity. And the mother's heart is broken. And she told me, she said, I said to my son, don't even come over to my house. If you're going to be wearing your long hair and your fingernails and your little nail polish and mascara, she said, if you come to my house, I won't even look at you. And I pushed her on that. And I said, ma'am, and she was from the Philippines, and she was a devout Catholic Filipino, and I've been to the Philippines a half dozen times, and I've picked up a little Tagalog along the way, and I know they call Our Lady Mama Mary. And so I said to her, I said, don't you remember when Mama Mary didn't want to look at her son either? She said, no. I said, you don't remember when they took him down off of the cross, and they placed his unrecognizable body into her arms, and her maternal heart was pierced. How hard it would have been to look at her son, but she did not take her maternal gaze of love off of him. I said, your son is Jesus Christ, and he needs your look of love now more than he has ever needed it before, because whatever we have done to the least of these, we have done to him. And the woman just broke in tears because she did love her son profoundly, more than anybody, but she didn't know how to express that. But what they need is this look of love. And so the challenge I want to give you, hold on to these individuals with one hand, and you hold on to the truth with other hand, and don't let go of either hand. This is going to create some tension at some points, because they might say, well, I want you to use my pronoun or my name. What do you do there on a day-to-day basis? One mom I was talking to, the daughter came to the mom and said, Mom, I am non-binary, and my pronouns are now they and them. And the mom's like, okay, well, they need to go clean their room, okay? And didn't get into some big old debate about it. And so what I would recommend, try to, if for them, to hear the pronoun that aligns with their biological sex. If that causes them considerable psychological distress, avoid the pronoun thing. Just try to back off. Don't, she. Back off a little bit. Give them a little space to figure that. Step back a little bit. Now, if it really comes to a head, well, I want you to use my pronoun. Here's what I would say. I would say, look, you know that I love you, and you know I understand that this is very important to you, and that I would never, ever want to hurt you. But know also, because I love you, I can never lie to you. And I feel that if I were to use that word to describe you, I feel like I'm being dishonest with you. And I know this might not be easy to hear, but I need you to know I don't reject you because of what you believe. And I'm really hoping you don't reject me because of what I believe, because I think we could still learn a lot from each other if we made room for one another in our lives. And hopefully if you take that compassionate approach, they'll give you some room. But if they don't, and if they resent you because you won't call them whatever they want to be called, here's my promise to you. If you don't speak the truth to them in love, they are going to resent you so much more for all eternity for not having spoken the truth to them. Because I'm telling you, what is about to hit our shores, what's going on? What is about to hit our shores right now is an absolute tsunami. And if you've ever watched tsunami footage on a YouTube, the first thing to happen is not some big tidal wave. That's Hollywood. When a tsunami hits, first thing to happen, it's low tide, but the lowest low tide you've ever seen. It just goes out. And if you don't know what that means, you're likely to walk out there with it. Oh, this is neat. Look, there's a shipwreck and a coral reef and new seashells. But if you understand that this is a harbinger of things to come, you don't run with it, you run in the opposite direction. You go up a hill, up a hotel, because something is about to hit shore. Right now, our whole culture, from politics to pharmaceuticals to sports to the media to everything, is out to sea with this transgender moment. But what is about to hit our shores is an absolute tsunami of detransitioners. These are individuals who've begun the process of transitioning and realized this was a mistake. I should not have done this to my body. And now they're turning around. And they're not just starting websites and little clubs. they're starting lawsuits and they're winning the lawsuits. Because think about it. I mean, think, could you imagine if the decisions that you made when you were 13 years old were irreversible? That would be tragic. Like, I've seen your yearbook photos. I mean, the hair, the bangs, like, you thought that was a good idea? I mean, like, you can't have, like, a mullet. I mean, you can't even have informed consent and get a mullet at the same time. But we're talking about hair here. No. Now, we're talking about fertility here. But the part of the brain that's in charge of critical thinking, that weighs risks and consequences, that part of the brain is called your medial preoptic, or it's called your dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. It's right around here. So if your teenagers ever said to you, like, what were you thinking? That's actually the part of the brain that they don't have right now, so you can get back at them for that. It's totally underdeveloped. It's kind of half-baked. Perfect example of this. A friend of mine has a 17-year-old son, graduated high school in Chicago last spring. And so for his senior prank, he did what any reasonable 17-year-old male would do. He drove with his friends from Chicago up to Wisconsin, and they bought a cow on Craigslist, okay? And they delivered the cow with pigs and hay and pigeons and to the wee hours of the morning and liberated all of them onto the high school campus, thinking it would create a little petting zoo and everyone would have a good laugh. Well, the cow would have none of it. It took off, out the gates, down the residential neighborhood sidewalks, running through the streets of Chicago, chased by 15-year-old boys with lassos and chains. They run by the house of a Chicago news anchor who's getting into his car that morning and sees the cow run by, whips out his cell phone, films the whole thing, and yells to the boys, "Why is there a cow running down the street?" Like he's gonna get a good answer. One of the high school boys pulls his car onto the sidewalk and said, "Sorry, sir, sometimes these things happen," and then drove away. Okay, like, we're still under construction here, folks, and so, not to belabor the point, but I'm in San Diego at the airport, the baggage claim. I look at some 18-year-old guy next to me, and he's got shorts on, and I look, and I'm like, oh, he's got a full-size, permanent tattoo of Homer Simpson, the cartoon character, in his underwear holding a can of beer. I'm like, well, that's kind of funny. And I look over, like, oh no, he didn't. He had Marge, Lisa, Bart, Abu. He had the entire cast of the Simpsons cartoon show permanently tattooed in his body. And all he's thinking is, oh, my friends are gonna think I'm so funny. But yeah, you're not thinking, like, one day you're gonna be 43 years old at a picnic for work, and your vice president, like, hey, you lose a fantasy football bet there? What happened to you? It's like, could not see into the future. And so what's happening here is the young people who've begun this process are fighting back. Kiara Bell, 16-year-old girl in England, puberty blockers. 18, cross-sex hormones, double mastectomy, turns 20, looks at her body. Oh, what did I do to my body? Then she looked up, what did you adults let me do to my body? She sued the biggest gender clinic in the United Kingdom. Her court case went all the way up to the High Court in England, and these liberal, progressive judges all ruled in her favor. I mean, thanks be to God. And so, and her legal battles have gone on for a while, but as a result of all this and other factors, the biggest gender clinic in the United Kingdom was just shut down last spring, okay? Things are shifting. And it's now been fractured into smaller clinics that actually focus on mental health. Because at that clinic, only once had they ever done an audit of incoming patients. 125 teenagers, they looked at them. How many of these kids had coexisting mental health conditions that required clinical intervention? 97.5% of them. But the clinic didn't have the resources. All they could do is diagnose them as trans with one answer of transition. 35 of their psychologists quit. They're saying we're not being allowed to explore the deeper psychological issues. One of them was working with a group of patients who had had the surgeries and still needed mental health services. He had another group of patients who were adults who wanted to surgically transition. And he had an idea. What if I bring these two groups for counseling together so they could share their experiences? He said a fascinating thing happened. 98% of the adults who had previously wanted to surgically transition, after having spent time with those who had, desisted and decided they no longer wanted surgery. 98% of them changed their mind. And so thankfully, the model is starting to shift in Western Europe. The Scandinavian countries, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Amsterdam. You show up at a gender clinic in Amsterdam today, hi, my child is non-binary and they would like puberty blockers. The clinic will say, okay, well, let's get your information. We've got an 18-month-long waiting list. Then we're going to review the case for about 9 months to decide if your child is a suitable candidate for puberty blockers. And from the kid's perspective, it's like, what? 2.5 years? My puberty is going to be finished by the time you guys make up your mind. And from the doctor's perspective, it's like, exactly. They're shifting. It's over here in Canada, America, Spain, over in Australia. It's like pedal to the metal. It's like we've got a GPS. It says there is a 52-car pileup on the freeway with black ice and casualties a quarter mile ahead, and you're going 70 miles an hour. What do? Cruise control, let's go. The writing is on the wall, and it's creating these global problems we don't even know what to do with. Not just the bathroom dilemmas, but sports. The USA Powerlifting just lost a lawsuit that now requires them to allow men to compete against women in women's powerlifting sports. Do you know what this means? I looked it up. Do you know who would be the world record holder for the deadlift and bench press for females at my age? Me. I looked it up. I would have the world record because I just deadlifted 415 pounds a couple months ago. I got my PR, so I would have the record. No, this is not something to be proud of. Should I be proud? No. The male record is over 1,000 pounds, okay? I've got nothing on them. But what do we do with these things? Domestic violence shelters? You're having women show up who've been domestically abused, want to spend the night in a place where it's safe, and they walk into the shower area, and there's a guy in the shower. And they come to the manager, excuse me, there's a man in the shower. And so, it's a trans woman, and we can't discriminate based on gender identity, so you can either share the room and the shower with that person, or you can sleep outside tonight. Where did her rights go? But again, the question needs to be asked, well, what about that man who's back there, who maybe himself would feel unsafe, appearing in a men's homeless shelter dressed as female? Where is his place to sleep tonight? Where is he to rest? Behind the dumpster in the alleyway? Where's the home for that Christ? And so we've got to wrestle with these questions to find answers and to go deep here. Prisons in America? Prisons, right now, what's going on in the prison system is we've got almost every state, men who identify as women being allowed to enter women's prisons. You know what's happening. Sexual assault, pregnancies are now in women's rapes. They don't know what to do with this. In England, the majority of female sex offenders are biological males who identify as women. And it's like, how did we get here? And I think what it's like is when I help my kids with math at the end of the day, we're sitting around the kitchen table and my 5th grade daughter's got some long division problem. And I go, okay, well, we got the answer wrong. Let's see where things went wrong. Siri, how do I solve this 5th grade math problem? Oh, well, that's an integer there. And right at the beginning, you missed that number just by 1 digit. Because that one number was off, the error that flowed from it was compounded exponentially. In the same respect, if we cannot distinguish male from female, the societal impact that will flow from that will be compounded exponentially. And in a sense, the church predicted this. Vatican II said that when God is forgotten, the creature itself grows unintelligible. Meaning, if we lose sight of supernatural realities, it will come to the point where we can't even see natural realities such as male and female. But to me, this is where the church can step in. Not with condemnation, but with clarity. The church's answer to this disintegration of man is an integrated vision of man. John Paul the Great gave it to us in his theology of the body. And some people will say, well, what could a celibate know about human sexuality and women? Dude, this objection is nonsense. Dude, look at the day in the life of a priest. He could wake up, 8 o'clock in the morning, give a kid First Communion. 12 noon, hear someone's confession who's been away from the faith for 40 years. 4 in the afternoon, celebrate a marriage. 2 o'clock in the morning, be by someone's bedside as they pass into eternal life. Now you multiply that day by 2,000 years, and the saints and the nuns, the sisters, and you want to throw away the wealth of that wisdom because they're celibate, it would leave us impoverished. They are a gift to the church, and John Paul in particular was a special gift. We should have known we had something special in him when he gave his first homily in 11 different languages. The man had a staggering intellect. His secretary confirmed he had the gift of split concentration, meaning he could read one book in theology while someone else was reading to him a second book in philosophy, and he would absorb both sources simultaneously. He could write papal speeches while someone was teaching him a foreign language. During the conclave that elected Pope John Paul I, John Paul was listening to the cardinal's speeches and writing what would become known eventually as the theology of the body at the exact same time. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that I too have the gift of split concentration. I can watch an NBA basketball game while someone at home explains to me the schedule for the kids for the next day, and I will absorb both sources simultaneously. I mean, you laugh, but I'm telling you, like, I've quizzed them, and they'll be like, well, what did I just say to you? And I'm like, well, you just said that LeBron is 2 rebounds away from getting a triple-double. And I'm like, well, that's not what I said. That's why we work on this. But John Paul legit had the gift, but he was so down to earth about his gifts. After becoming Pope, he's walking through the Vatican gardens, and he saw a landscaper there who he hadn't met before. This guy's like pulling weeds, and John Paul's excited to meet him. Oh, I haven't met you before. Comes over, and the guy stands up. His hands are muddy, filthy, fixing sprinklers, can't shake the Pope's hand. John Paul sensed he was shy, grabbed him by the wrist, pulled him close, smeared his muddy hands on his white papal cassock, and said, don't worry, now that I'm the Pope, I don't have to do my laundry anymore. It's like, okay, I like this guy, And one of my favorite qualities of John Paul is that he would sneak out of the Vatican to hang out with his friends. He snuck out of the Vatican more than 100 times to hang out with his friends. Even when he was in a wheelchair, he was sneaking out of the Vatican. Now, how do you pull that off? Well, he would go down in the parking garage with his friends, put on a black hoodie sweatshirt, hold up a newspaper in the back seat, and drive off. And the Swiss guards are upstairs. Have you seen the Holy Father? He was this morning in the chapel. Where is he? Where is he? He's skiing in the Italian Alps is where he's at. On one of these occasions, he's going up the chairlift. A little Italian boy was next to him skiing as well. And the boy kept looking over at him. The boy finally said, look, are you the Pope? John Paul looked at him and said, I am. Do you want to ski with me? And the kid's like, yeah. So up the chairlift they go and down the slopes. The kid gets to the bottom, yells to his mom. He's like, Mom, do you know I'm skiing with the Pope? And I'm sure she's like, yeah, I'm having hot cocoa with Mother Teresa down here. So, but now in his theology of the body, one of the things that he taught us is that the human body is the only creation of God that makes a person visible. Because animals have a body, but they're not a personal being. Angels are a personal being, but they don't have a body. And so the human body alone makes a person visible, because you are your body. If someone hit you, you wouldn't say, why did you hit me? And they say, well, I didn't hit you, I just hit your body. It's like, well, wait, that's bad anthropology, okay? Your body isn't something you have like you have a pair of jeans. Your body is you. If you say, I'm going to the store, well, I'm willing to bet your body is going to the store as well. But if we untether our identity from our bodies, your identity has to anchor onto something, if not your body. But if it doesn't anchor to your body, what will it attach to? Your personality. But here's the problem. There are as many personalities as there are persons, and you'll end up with an endless spectrum of gender identities. But that's not the end goal, to have lots of genders. The end game is one thing: to erase the spousal meaning of the body, to erase sexual complementarity. Because we need to remember, the devil is not only the enemy of our souls, the devil is the enemy of human nature. And so what God has joined, he wants to rupture. If God joins husband and wife, he wants divorce. God joins body and soul, he wants death. But if God has joined your body to who you are as a person, and the devil can rupture that, then man becomes meaningless. And male is meaningless, then husband is meaningless, father is meaningless, priest is meaningless, family has no meaning. Everything gets tossed to the wind. This is the end game. And this is why John Paul said we have been given a task to rediscover the meaning of our bodies. Our bodies are real and reliable. Stamped into them is not only our identity, but our calling. Look at the beauty of the difference. Look at the beauty of the woman's body, the difference there. Just her brain. In the woman's ear right now are thousands of microscopic hair cells that vibrate with a greater intensity than men's do, which amplifies her ability to hear, to distinguish between nuances and inflections in the human voice, distinctions that are indistinguishable to the male brain. We literally can't hear them. I think there's entire conversations the male brain can't hear as well, but that's an entirely different conversation altogether. If you've ever taught kids, have you ever noticed you have to speak a little louder to the boys? You do. You have to speak 8 decibels louder for the male brain to register speech at the same level the female brain will register speech. Now, it's not a guarantee that he's listening to you, but he can at least hear you at that point, okay? And it might seem that women have all the edge, but it's not the case. Men are comfortable with sounds twice as loud as a woman. One way in which men universally outperform women is locating the origin of a sound in 3-dimensional space. You're walking through the woods, you hear a branch crack 35 yards southeast. The man can pinpoint the origin of a sound with much greater accuracy than the woman can. Men also do a better job of blocking out ambient noise, typically. In fact, they found if you do a brain scan on some men while they're reading, they become functionally deaf. And I'm one. Like, I've had my kids scream at me, and they're like, "Dad!" I'm like, "Why are you yelling at me?" They're like, "We called your name 9 times." And I was like, I was reading a book. I couldn't hear a thing. Now, women typically are the opposite, gifted in auditory multitasking. I was having dinner with my teenage daughter at this restaurant once, and there's a little lull in the conversation. And I said, "Mary, what are you thinking about?" She's like, "Shush." I'm like, "What do you mean, shush? Like, we're only people at the restaurant." Dude, turns out she's listening to all of the conversations of the tables around us, all their relationship problems and drama. I mean, even people too far away to hear, she's reading lips, she's looking at body language, and then she's like, "You see him? He likes her more than she likes him, and those two are not getting along tonight over there." And I'm like, I could have sworn we were the only people in that restaurant, and she's just gathering intel the entire time. And so our ears are different. Our eyes are different. You know, women can actually see shades of color that are indistinguishable to men. This is why women come up with colors like mauve, fuchsia, chartreuse, taupe. Taupe? Like, what is that? Like, I need a small box of crayons. Like, that's enough. That covers them all as far as I'm concerned. So our eyes are different, but men's eyes are better in tracking objects as they move through space. A baseball, golf ball. Look at that rocket thrown in the lake. That's fascinating. Like, the men lock in on that stuff. Eyes are different. Smell is different. Women smell better than men do. Like, literally, they smell better than men do. At the base of your brain, women, is your olfactory bulb. You have more than 7 million more cells in there than we do, which amplifies your ability to detect and distinguish between smells, especially if you're ovulating or pregnant. The sensitivity to smell goes through the roof, which means for any teenage boys in here, if your mom ever walks into your room and she's like, "Hi, honey," and you're like, "What's the matter?" Like, something died in here, and he's like, "I don't know, it smells good to me, Mom." It's like, no, dude, wash your hockey uniform for the first time this presidency, okay? Like, and don't just put cologne on it, okay? Like, just hydrate the thing, you know. And so the smells are different for us. Touch. They've done studies on human skin and found no overlap between male and female, meaning the least sensitive woman's skin was still more sensitive than the most sensitive man's skin. No overlap in terms of the tactile senses. In terms of the emotions, this one's beautiful. They did a study where they put the differences of our hearts, our empathy, put a bunch of little boys and girls in a room, had a wall. On the other side of the wall was a baby who was crying. And you could hear the baby crying through an intercom on the wall. The intercom had 2 switches. One switch you could click to talk to the baby, and the other switch you could hit to turn the volume of the baby completely off. Now, I think you can see where this is coming. So, it's going. Invariably, the little girls walk over, click. Hey, baby, you doing okay in there? Boys walk over, problem solved. And so, now, to me, this does not reveal competition, some tit-for-tat battle of the sexes. To me, this reveals complementarity, because stamped into the uniqueness of our bodies is the fact that we're made a gift of ourselves. This is why the devil is so desperate to get women to think that you have to be masculinized in order to become powerful. No, I had breakfast with a brilliant philosopher once. Her name was Dr. Alice von Hildebrand, and she said to me, yeah, a brilliant woman, and she said, Jason, she said, yes, she said, men have power in what they do, but she said, women have power in who they are. Because the fact is that women were not created to do everything a man can do. They were created to do everything a man cannot do. I read one guy, he said this, he said, look, whatever you give to a woman, she will make greater. He said, if you give her sperm, she'll give you a baby. He said, if you give her a house, she'll give you a home. If you give her groceries, she'll give you a meal. If you give her a smile, she'll give you her heart. She multiplies and enlarges what is given to her. Now, please understand in me saying this. I'm not saying, well, there you go, domestic servitude, biology is destiny. I'm not going there. Where I'm going at is this. I had lunch about 1.5 years ago with a religious sister. So she's a consecrated sister. So she's a nun, okay? So she's a sister, and she's a doctor, and she's a surgeon, and she's a colonel in the United States Army. I'm like, did you not feel like being an astronaut because you're lazy? You just kind of couldn't get around to it there? Like this woman was not doing these things instead of motherhood. This woman was mothering through these things. She understood the gift of her womanhood was not some cage. It was not some box she had to conform to. It was a gift from a father, a firm foundation upon which he could stand to bloom into whoever God has created us to be. And so he's given us all this task to rediscover and live the meaning of our bodies. And this means all of us. Yeah, not all of us may experience gender dysphoria, but I know all of us in one way or another wrestle with our sexuality. Am I the man I'm supposed to be? Am I living this gift of myself as God's calling me to do? And so how are we supposed to live it out? Draw you back to the theme of this whole conference, the Blessed Sacrament. This is my body given up for you. Individuals who experience gender dysphoria are being called in a unique way to live the Eucharist, to live the Mass, that they could actually speak in their own body, God, this is my body in its suffering, in my difficulty, but what I choose is I take my body and I offer it up to you, Father, for the salvation of souls. I look forward to the day where we have saints in the Catholic Church who experienced gender dysphoria, but instead of harming their bodies, or even if they chose to start over and chose to glorify God in and through their bodies, to live this Eucharistic life in their own bodies, to realize the gift of the givenness of their sexual identity. And I think if they come to Jesus, they will realize he's the only one who gets them. He's the only one who is there. In the dead of the night, as their tears fell onto their pillow, when they felt rejected by their family, maybe by their church, maybe by their friends, and they felt that their only companion was darkness, that he alone saw that moment, and he was with them in that suffering. And so I think if we come to him, as Mother Teresa said, to be loved by him, then he will do the rest. And I think if a person wrestling with gender dysphoria, whether she's 13 or he's 47, comes to Christ, I believe this is what God would say. I believe that God would say, my beloved child, you were not born into the wrong body. You were born into the wrong culture, a culture that's telling you that you have to hurt your body in order to be your authentic self. Your body does not need to be reconstructed. it is this culture that needs to be reconstructed. And so I have created you that, and God would say, I have created you to participate with me in the reconstruction of this broken culture. It's a calling to sainthood. It's a calling not just to attend the Mass, but to live the Mass and all of our brokenness. And you may hear this and think, well, I don't know, I've made big mistakes in my own sexuality. What am I supposed to do here? Or I'm wrestling with gender dysphoria. No matter how much I pray, it's not going away. God's in the mess with you. A friend of mine is always reading books about saints. And I said, hey, you read any good saint books lately? He's, yeah, I'm reading about saints and addictions. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like saints who help people with their addictions. He's like, no. I'm reading about the addicted saints. I'm like, what is that? And he said, well, look at this guy. The guy's name is Saint Mark Ji Cheng Zheng from China. Husband, father, and doctor. Got sick with a stomach ailment and treated himself with the drug opium, which was used at that time. The illness went away, but a drug addiction remained in its place. And he went to confession. Father, forgive me, I've become addicted to this drug. The priest gave him absolution, some advice, and he fell back to the addiction. Came back to confession, then back to addiction. Confession, addiction, confession, addiction. Sound familiar? And the priest eventually said, because you keep committing the sin, it tells me you're not really sorry for this. And because you're not, I'd ask you no longer receive communion and don't come back to confession until you've overcome the addiction. Which is bad pastoral advice to give, but he didn't know how to help a guy through addiction. And Mark obeyed him. And he still went to Mass with his family, couldn't receive communion, couldn't go to confession because he wasn't perfect, and a month went by. A month became a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years away from the sacrament. And he just started praying that God would make him a martyr, and God answered his prayer. In the year 1900, the Boxer Rebellion came into China, and he and 9 members of his family were rounded up to be executed. As they're being dragged away from the house, the grandson yelled to Mark, Grandpa, where are we going? And Mark said to him, we are going home. And they brought them to the place of torture, and they started beheading the members of his family. And Mark begged the torturers to kill him last, so that nobody in the family would have to die without him by their side, encouraging them to be strong to the very end. And one by one, they took off the heads of everyone in his family until only he was left. And he was beheaded as he was singing the litany of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And today, he's a canonized saint who died addicted to opium, which is proof that saint is not the one who doesn't have a mess. The saint gives their mess totally to Jesus Christ. And so, no matter what your mess may be, just give it to him, because he makes miracles out of messes. And so to help you and your families live this out and to share this message, we have some resources that we brought to the conference that we just want to point up. If you could throw up the slide there. What we've got are a couple things. One, if you want to dive deeper, because this subject deserves more than an hour to be covered, I did a book called Male, Female, Other, A Catholic Guide to Understanding Gender. It's a deep dive. How do we accompany people?
And welcome back to EWTN's ongoing live coverage of the 10th National Eucharistic Congress. I'm your host, Catherine Hadro, coming to you from the Indianapolis Convention Center. And I'm delighted once again to be joined by my 2 co-hosts, Father Aquinas Gilbo, University Chaplain at the Catholic University of America, and Pete Burak, Vice President at Renewal Ministries. So we were just listening to a breakout session by Jason Everett, very familiar to a lot of our EWTN viewers and listeners as well, about gender dysphoria. And again, this comes on the day that we are focusing on healing as we're all entering into Gethsemane. Any immediate thoughts, anything that struck you in particular from Jason's talk that we just heard?
I think just the fact that this is a discussion at the 10th National Eucharistic Congress. Yeah. 83 years ago at the last Congress, I'm sure this was not a topic of discussion. So just on the one hand, recognizing the swift appearance of this question as a real pastoral problem and pastoral concern for the church, for pastors, for families, for young people. I don't think I'm that old, but when I was 20, 25 years old, this was not a category I had to deal with. But now that I'm mid to late 40s, all of a sudden, and dealing with and ministering to college students, this is at the forefront of, it's just a daily reality that they face. So the question is pertinent, and actually I'm kind of glad to see that it's been raised here at the Congress.
Yeah, it's important for the church to be aware of what's going on in culture and to be able to address it with clarity, with truth, and then as Jason talked about at the front, that truth and love. And I think one of the things that is sometimes a challenge for us is because we know the truth and we believe the truth and we maybe could even say see the absurdity of other positions and see kind of the destructive effects of when people wander away from the truth, we can be aggressive in trying to pull people back to the truth. And there's a time and a place for the more kind of direct statement. But one of the things I think Jason does a nice job of is reminding us that these are human beings made in the image and likeness of God, loved by Him, desired by Him, to be in His heart for all eternity. And so the starting point for disciples with any of these conversations, especially though the sexual moral teaching, is to still remember that they are made to know, love, and serve God just as we are. And yes, they're on a path that looks quite different, and the Lord is calling them off of that path. And that's okay to acknowledge, just as like He's called me off the path of pride and jealousy and all these other sins that are in my own heart. But so we can keep in tension the call to repentance, but without losing the empathy and the realization of how much we need a Savior too.
And maintaining the dignity of the human person at the core of that, of every single person. And the fact that that room looked packed means that this is on the hearts of families here, that we know that there are concerned parents who knows what they're hearing in their schools from their children. And surely with 50,000 plus people here, this is touching the lives even of and including devout Catholic families. So even just for anyone who has that specific struggle, they are heard and they are listened to. One thing that stood out to me, Jason was talking about the role that detransitioners are going to be having in this battle, for lack of a better word, out there right now. People who have walked through this and have come to find their identity in Christ, their true identity in Christ, and are sharing their testimony. And there's a courage to that. And we've been talking throughout our coverage, the power of testimony. Today, especially when we had that talk on healing with Dr. Mary Healy and Lucas Oil, saying if you've been healed, you actually have a responsibility to share your testimony. And that's relevant here as well.
Yeah, I think what you have in the case of the detransitioner, and there are several famous cases that are emerging, and several cases are working their way through the courts right now. So Jason was right, we're going to be hearing a lot more of this in the months and years to come. Looking at it from a Eucharistic perspective, here we are at the Eucharistic Congress. This is a real pastoral, emergency, I would say, for the church. There is a way in which we can reflect on this Eucharistically. If at the heart of the mystery of the Eucharist is the Lord at the Last Supper, giving us bread and wine, saying, this is my body, and all of that means, that He's giving us His flesh and blood as His body for our food. There's something about a this is my body shape or form to the Christian life, even just to come to terms with our own creation. This is my body, and I can really become one with that reality and mystery through the Eucharist, as the Lord gives me His body, as food. I think it's, that's the challenge that Jason offered. What is it like, or what's the interior experience of living in a state where you're just constantly affirming, or at least think you need to affirm, this is not my body. What does that mean? And so I think the detransitioner is in a unique place to witness to the fact of going from an experience of this is not my body, then to actually know this is my body. And whatever faith, the Lord, a Eucharistic life can do to bring one from the former to the latter, I think is something that certainly as pastors we need to come to a better understanding of what the experience is, in order to be able then to help people pastorally come to that repetition of the words of the Lord. I mean, this is my body.
Yeah, and that there is hope and healing if this is something that you are grappling with and struggling with, and that is a real cross. That is a real cross. As you said earlier, Father, as we were preparing to go on air, this really is some people's Gethsemane.
Right. Yeah.
As
that's the theme for today, right? And so again, I think it's appropriate that the topic comes up, that we focused on it this morning in prayer, now in a more direct way, in a catechetical session, but bringing that to adoration tonight, You know, these issues, these questions, these burdens, these wounds, entering into our own personal Gethsemanes. And everyone's looks different, but for each, it's a pathway to union with the Lord in the garden.
And, you know, and one of the great joys of being Catholic is that we do have such a robust set of minds and hearts that have thought about these issues, that we don't have to try to kind of be intimidated by the world's message, because the world's message is loud and it's aggressive, and it seems like the right side of history and all these things that can kind of feel like an avalanche of momentum away from the gospel values that we know are true. And so to be able to almost take a step, not back in retreat, but to calm and say, no, I'm with the Lord in this. The church is solid on this. The church has great, robust, clear teaching on these things. Theology of the body isn't outdated. It's not on the wrong side of history. But also knowing that a lot of what the church teaches in the sexual moral area is very different than what the world has basically stopped debating. I mean, gender dysphoria right now is still very much up for debate, but a lot of the other things, whether it's contraception, abortion, premarital sex, you go on masturbation, pornography, there's divorce. Those things are not really a public square debate as much anymore, because the world's just kind of like, no, that's okay. We talked about it, and now we all agree on it. And so when we enter into the world and say, no, actually, we don't do those things, and the world's going to receive that often as like, well, these are just a bunch of guys who want to ruin my weekend.
Right.
And so what I've found is that in order to kind of help people even just like be attracted to it, they have to be drawn to Jesus first. They have to have an encounter with Jesus, because it's through the lens of Jesus that the teachings become clear, they become vibrant. Pope Benedict had a definition of conversion where he said, it's receiving new sight. It's like what was blurry becomes clear, what was black and white becomes technicolor, that we actually put on the light of Christ, and so we are illuminated to understand the truth. And so that starts with our first witness of being transformed into Jesus ourselves through the Eucharist. So you can see the pathway here is we are transformed so that we can lead people into an encounter with who transformed us, so that they can understand and have a renewed mind.
Amen. I think that's such an important point, too, that we are all bombarded by the world's messaging day in and day out. That's another gift of us all being here, is that we can kind of quiet that outside noise and be reminded of the truth and who is the truth. We are surrounded by him here today. And that is that battery charger. It is that, okay, if I'm struggling through something, no, I'm reminded of the truth, and now I'm reinvigorated all over again. After this, there's going to be a few hours, and then we'll all be back in Lucas Oil Stadium once again for the third revival night session. I think today is going to be particularly powerful. There's going to be a really powerful prayer exercise. And so even just for our viewers at home, if you can't physically be here, to join in later on in that program, participate. You can still participate and start thinking about, they were sharing earlier, Dr. Mary Healy, that oftentimes a blockage to healing is unforgiveness. So I think even just everyone here preparing for what we're all going to experience together, that revival session, us all contemplating, where do I have those blocks? Who am I holding some bitterness and resentment towards, and releasing that? And that's what we're taught in the Lord's Prayer as well.
I think a lot of times if we're hesitant to forgive something for something, it's probably because we're not yet ready for the Lord to forgive us, you know, for probably the same thing. And so, it's a two-way street in terms of that end of the Our Father. The way we forgive and the way we want to be forgiven, those two things are intimately connected. And whatever knot is there, hindering both the forgiveness of others and ourselves, let's pray that gets untied tonight.
And Catherine, I love the point you made there a second ago about the world wants us to think we're alone, we're weird, we're outdated, that there's nobody like us. And so events like this remind us, like, no, actually, I'm not strange. The world is strange.
Right.
You know, like, I'm living I'm in the real world here. This is actually the real world. We're not made for this world alone, but we're moving in the truth, in the light of Christ. And so it's such a nice reminder of, like, no, I'm not just this isolated person, which is another reason why the broadcast is so important.
Right.
You're not here with us physically, but you're here with us spiritually, and you are also reminded that there are 50,000 people in Indianapolis who believe what you believe. That's very significant.
And we know that this is touching the lives of people. Jesus is coming into the living rooms of countless, we don't even know, We know that there are 50,000 people here. They're expecting 10,000 more people to pick up their registration. Those numbers will probably rise over the weekend with those weekend passes. God is at work, and I'm getting excited for that revival session tonight and to be with you all. Again, our live coverage of the 10th National Eucharistic Congress continues tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. In the meantime, be sure to visit EWTN.com/Eucharist or visit EWTN On Demand to find our complete National Eucharistic Congress coverage. We'll see you soon. God bless.